Welcome aboard, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health, welcoming you to a very, very special edition of the Dr. Glidden Show. If you want to watch the live video stream, please go to thedrgliddenshow.tv, thedrgliddenshow.tv. It's free. Just follow the bouncing mouse and you can watch the video stream as well as listen to the audio. And I highly recommend it for today's program because it is my honor and privilege to bring up my very special guest for the first hour, but I need to set the stage first. It is important. Remember, I advocate holistic medicine, the holistic philosophy, the holistic understanding. And when you have a holistic understanding of medicine, it trickles down into a holistic understanding of life. And in this regard, it is important, necessary, and essential to pay attention to the ancestors, to pay attention to the history, to give credit where credit is due. And ladies and gentlemen, if it were not for the actions of the guest, which I am about to introduce, naturopathic medicine in the United States would be a remnant, would be a leaf on an autumn tree ready to fall off. My next guest, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, is considered the father of naturopathic medicine in the 21st century. I could literally speak for an hour, literally, not figuratively, about Dr. Pizzorno's resume. Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, appointed by President Clinton in 2000 to the White House Commission on Complementary and Alternative Medicine Policy, and by the Bush administration to the Medicare Coverage Advisory Committee in 2002, is one of the world's leading authorities on science-based natural medicine, a naturopathic physician, educator, researcher, and spokesperson. He's the founding president of Bastyr University, yours truly's alma mater. Under his leadership, Bastyr became the first accredited multidisciplinary University of Natural Medicine and the first National Institute of Health funded center for alternative medicine research. In June of 2000, Dr. Pizzorno retired from academia after 22 years from the presidency of Bastyr University. In 1996, he was appointed to the Seattle King County Board of Health and was a founding board member of the American Herbal Pharmacopoeia. He served as chair of the American Public Health Association Special Interests Group on Complementary and Alternative Medicine from 1999 to 2001, and in 2001, he joined the Scientific Review Board of the Gateway for Cancer Research Foundation. I could go on and on and on and on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my express privilege and a pleasure to introduce to the listening community the physician in whose footsteps I am happy and privileged to follow, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno. Dr. Pizzorno, welcome aboard.
Well, thank you for the very kind introduction, Dr. Glidden. I have to say, there's no greater joy for a teacher than to see his students become such great leaders in helping people become healthy. So the work that you are doing and the message you're presenting, we'll say it, the message you're preaching, are so incredibly important for people's health. So thank you for the work that you do.
Well, you know, what goes around comes around, Dr. Pizzorno, and as my relative Benjamin Franklin said, ladies and gentlemen, we must all hang together, or most assuredly we will hang individually. Now, you, better than anybody else, has had their finger on the pulse of the growth of naturopathic medicine for a long time here in the United States. And so I'd like you just to give my listening audience a little snippet, a little kind of look into the past as to where naturopathy was when you came along and where naturopathic medicine is today.
Well, that's actually quite a story. I first got involved in the profession back in 1971, and at that point there was only one college left in all of North America. There were only 13 students in my class, and only 6 states licensed us.
13 students in your class.
13.
Wow.
That was 13. Only 7 graduated.
Wow.
So, and the 2 years before me, that class had nobody graduate. You could say that in 1973, naturopathic medicine, his heart stopped for a moment. But we didn't die, and I think we didn't die for a good reason. And I remember back in 1973, when I was still a third-year student, I was on a hike up in the mountains with Dr. Bastyr. And as you may recall, you were fortunate that Dr. Bastyr was one of your teachers for a while. And we were walking through the mountains, and he was showing the herbals and how to use them for our patients. And it was miraculous. Here's nature healing. And then a week before we had this conference, we had this herb tour. The state Supreme Court in Washington had just decided that naturopathic doctors had no right to diagnose or treat disease. I said, Dr. Bastyr, is there any future to this medicine? Because it was really grim. And he said, no matter the barriers they erect, the truth of the medicine will out. And that is the truth. That the healing that we have been keeping alive in our society for over 100 years is the only true cure to the healthcare crisis we're facing today. Until we have a healthcare system that is founded on the principles of naturopathic medicine, we will always have a healthcare crisis.
Well, you sound as if you're preaching to the choir, because you are, in fact, preaching to the choir, and this is the clarion call that I put up on this radio program every day. The medical system in the United States doesn't need to be upregulated. It doesn't need to be downregulated. It doesn't need to be tweaked, managed, nor massaged. It needs to be abandoned because it does not work. Allopathic-directed medicine is most effective and most well-suited for trauma care, surgery when it's absolutely necessary, and a handful of infectious diseases. That's the wheelhouse of the MD. Thank God for the sterile technique and penicillin and Novocaine and morphine and, the mattress suture. That's all well and good. However, while we have given ourselves over to the monopolization of the medical marketplace by the MDs, autism has skyrocketed, Alzheimer's has skyrocketed, the type 2 diabetes has skyrocketed, chronic disease is skyrocketing and exponentially. And it's not because of genetics. It's not because of bad genes. It's not because of, inappropriate lifestyle changes. It's because we're taking the wrong dog to the hunt. The medical doctor, the MD, bless their hearts, by virtue of their training in allopathic reductionism, are ill-suited to help people recover from chronic disease. And yet, because they monopolize the medical marketplace to such a high degree, they are the only people that they're the only professionals that most people are even aware of. And, this reminds me of, I forget who it was. Maybe you can remember because you have a better memory for stuff like this than I do. But years ago, I remember I was at a naturopathic legislative event, and somebody was telling us the story that they had just come back from some place in Kentucky or West Virginia where they were attempting to get naturopathic medicine, licensed and regulated, and there was a bill. And the governor looked at the bill, and he looked at the bill, and he looked up at the naturopaths, and he said, naturopaths, we don't need hiking trails, we need jobs, right? Because, right, nobody even knows how to pronounce naturopathy, let alone knows what it is. And right now, I believe, we're licensed and regulated in only 18 states. This is way better than it was when you kind of took over the stewardship of the profession. But still, there's lots and lots of work to be done. So let's go back, right? So you're with Dr. Bastyr, and he gives you inspiration because the fact of the matter is that the truth will always out, and we are the carriers of the truth. And so what happens next?
So what happened next is, after graduating and seeing what a terrible condition the profession was in, I realized that for the wisdom of this medicine to go forward, we had to play the modern game of accredited education, research, modern textbooks, becoming savvy and talking to the media, to the governmental agencies and governmental officials. So when I started Bastyr in 1978, the foundation was very appropriate, and that is when I mentioned to my receptionist that I wanted to start a naturopathic college based on science. She told one of my patients, a woman who had cured of her rheumatoid arthritis, and she sent me a check for $200. And with that $200 from a grateful patient, I started Bastyr University.
Unbelievable. $200. Now, what year was this, Doc?
1978.
Wow, 1978, a $200 endowment, and Bastyr University is off to the races now from 1978 until 2014. Quite a number of things have transpired. If you could lay out for the listening audience kind of the more salient points on the evolutionary curve of Bastyr University.
So there are many factors that are important. The first one, which was very, very important, was to have a science foundation. Because my belief was that although conventional medicine claimed that science was their province, reality science is basically a tool to be used, and no profession owns it. So I coined the term science-based natural medicine when I started telling people about Bastyr University and what I wanted to create. In order to then establish that foundation, I attracted the PhDs to teach our basic sciences. I attracted MDs to teach our diagnosis, but I had the naturopathic doctors teach treatment. So by having a really strong foundation and recognizing conventional medicine has its strengths and using those strengths, I was able to create an environment that had high-quality academics and allowed us to become, again, the first accredited University of Natural Medicine ever. I mean, not just the United States, but anywhere in the world, because this form of medicine has been basically actively suppressed by conventional medicine all over the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you have a sense of who we're talking to? The human being, the physician, the physician's physician who actually coined the term science-based medicine, the father of naturopathic medicine in the modern age, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno. Doc, we're coming up against a hard break here. Stick with me. I'm going to have you for the full hour. We're going to talk about the history of naturopathy and so very much more. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a red letter day. Mark it on your calendars. Send the emails, send the phone notifications, send the Facebook notifications right now. Have people go to the drglidden.show.tv. Tune in, turn on, get educated, and let's save lives together. Don't even think about touching that dial. Welcome back, everybody. Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health, welcoming you to another live edition of the Dr. Glidden Show, where today's very, very special guest, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno, arguably the main mover and shaker in the field of naturopathic medicine and the main axle around which the naturopathic profession has revolved in order to gain access into the mainstream of medicine here in the 21st century. So, Dr. Pizzorno, all right, so when you started, there's 7 students in the class, 1 naturopathic medical school, hadn't even become fully accredited yet. 2, you started it with a $200 donation, and now we fast forward to 2014. How many naturopathic medical schools are there in the world today, and approximately how many students in each class?
Well, in North America, there are now 9, so that's quite gratifying. And there's probably, in all those schools, probably about 2,000 students.
Yeah, it's quite a remarkable.
It's grown just remarkably.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, and it's like you can't stop the truth, right? The truth will out, and this is why naturopathic medicine persists, because what naturopathic physicians all around the world espouse are science-based, clinically verified alternatives to drugs and surgery, not because drugs and surgery are bad and wrong. They're very useful for certain things. It's all based on science, and here's another approach. Here's another attitude. It's science-based, and it's clinically verified. It was a brilliant, it was a brilliant insight as far as I'm concerned to be able to couch what we do in naturopathic medicine in those terms. It was a brilliant move on your part. Now, let's talk a little bit, please, about the Dietary Health and Supplement Enforcement Act, or Education Act, DSHEA, and the impact that it had on the delivery of natural therapeutics here in the U.S.
Well, I have to say I was there when it was all happening, and I think it was very important because the DSHEA basically gave a legal foundation for the dietary supplement industry. And what they said, and this is really important, was that dietary supplements could make claims to improve structure and function as long as they did not make claims for curing disease. So the idea was to say, okay, curing disease, that's conventional medicine. Of course, we naturopathic doctors do that as well. But for everyday people, they want to promote their health. And that's where the dietary supplements are so useful, because so much of the disease today is due to nutritional deficiencies inappropriate lifestyle, and environmental toxicity. If you look at the research, only 20% of disease is based on genetics. All the rest is under our control.
Yeah, it's a remarkable phenomenon, to be sure. And before D. Shea, what D. Shea did effectively was to draw a line in the sand that separated the pharmaceutical industry from the vitamin industry, making it possible for United States citizens to gain access to high quality, potent, therapeutically effective nutritional supplements without the need of a prescription. And this was a really big deal. And Dr. Pizzorno was one of the main people that was involved in this happening, ladies and gentlemen. So you have, among other people, to thank Dr. Pizzorno for your ability to buy longevity supplements, for your ability to go to the local health food store and get whatever nutritional supplement you want. And as far as I'm concerned, right, Dr. Pizzorno, that freedom does not exist in the European Union because of a Codex Alimentaria. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, first off, while I'm proud to have helped with DSHEA, I would not look at myself as one of the prime movers for it. I helped it happen, helping provide science. Situation in Europe is definitely quite different. We in this country are fortunate to have access to such a wide variety of high-quality dietary supplements. But when you look at Europe, you look at, for example, Canada, they're much more restricted in what's available. What I had hoped to have happened during DSHEA, we couldn't quite pull it off, was I would like to have seen a third branch of the FDA, which was devoted to natural health products, so they could be regulated appropriately. Because they should not be regulated as drugs, but on the other hand, they should not be regulated as foods either. There's this whole category in between drugs and foods, which is where our herbs and our nutritional supplements, particularly high dosages and such, belong, and they should be regulated appropriately.
Couldn't agree more, Dr. Pizzorno, and perhaps with the passage of time, this too shall come to pass, especially if there are people of your ilk still on the playing field here, still standing up and being counted, still standing up and pointing in the direction that everybody needs to go, the direction to the undiscovered country of science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. Stick around, folks. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of environmental medicine with the man himself, Dr. Joe Pizzorno, when we come back. Again, do not even think about touching that dial. Stick around. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Your host, Dr. Peter Glidden, your steadfast advocate for health, and my very special guest, Dr. Joseph Pizzorno. Check out his website, which we've had the URL up for the entire program here, drpizzorno.com, drpizzorno.com. Now, Dr. Pizzorno, I think I got a little bit ahead of myself. Before we get into your favorite subject of late, environmental toxicity and its net negative effects on health, let's talk a little bit about what you, because nobody should have their finger on this pulse better than you, where you see naturopathic medical education and naturopathic medicine, generally speaking, where it is today, and what you predict for the future. What's the future of naturopathic medicine look like, Dr. Pizzorno? Is it good? Is it bad? What's going on?
Oh, it's clearly good. But let me broaden that response to saying, what does an ideal healthcare system look like? And I would see it as having three components. The first component is public health, because if you look at the increase in longevity the last 100 years, most of it's due to public health, not to doctors of whatever persuasion. The second foundation is primary care that's respected as well as specialists are. And right now, naturopathic doctors are the best primary care physicians in the world. And I would see us collaborating with conventional medicine primary care doctors to create primary care that is curative in nature, not just treating symptoms, which is what, unfortunately, most conventional medicine is. And then the third part, but the smallest part, would then be the tertiary specialist care. So the foundation really has to be public health, primary care that's curative, and then we don't need the specialist care near as much. And that's the direction naturopathic medicine is going today. And I think we'll see conventional medicine adopting more and more of the wisdom we've kept alive for the last 100 years.
Now, of course, one of the, the pessimistic view of all of this is that there are some people in the profession that think that, well, the same thing is going to happen to the naturopaths that happen to the osteopaths. And as we become more kind of ensconced in mainstream medicine and more married with the allopathic model in whatever way, shape, or form that happens, that our therapeutics are going to be ultimately corrupted and taken over. And then, because the pharmaceutical industry really has no interest whatsoever in partnering with us. What are your thoughts about that? I'd be interested to know.
I think that actually is a valid concern, and we have to be very, very vigilant. Clearly, osteopaths said, okay, in order to be accepted, let's be like MDs, and that's what they did. So their core philosophy, which was more natural in nature when they were founded 100 years ago, they've lost most of that. So with naturopathic medicine, if we look at, for example, the NIH, National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine Research, one of the problems we have with this branch of the NIH was they wanted to study our medicines as drugs. They want to look at let's look at, for example, St. John's wort, and let's compare it to Prozac to see which is better treating depression. Well, the problem is that's not how we think about our patients. Patients don't have depression because of lack of Prozac. They don't have depression because of lack of St. John's wort. Those are more symptomatic in nature. What we need to do is understand why the person has a depression. Nutritional deficiencies, environmental toxins. Their life is not very good, and they should be depressed, so they'll make a change. We need to look at the causes why people are sick. And that's why I don't think we will ever be co-opted, because we are so focused on the cause of why people are sick rather than simply using therapies, no matter how natural, that simply alleviate symptoms without dealing with the causes.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and this is why it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, if you are at all interested or leaning towards the holistic medical model, that you ground yourself in the philosophy of holistic medicine. You ground yourself in the philosophy of naturopathic medicine, because once you are grounded in the philosophical understanding which informs all of the therapeutics that naturopathic doctors deliver, then you will have a solid, unshakable foundation from which to move forward. And quite frankly, when you understand the holistic method, when you really get it, and it's not that difficult a thing to get, when you get what the holistic method is, doors open up in your mind, and everything, quite frankly, becomes much clearer than it was before, and it's much easier to understand, well, yeah, son of a gun, I can see why this person would be depressed. They have a blood sugar issue. Their blood sugar is under-optimized. They're eating all the wrong foods all of the time, and they're in an abusive relationship. All of these things need to be handled, and when you bring the proper perspective to bear on any particular problem, right, it becomes much clearer and much easier to understand. I couldn't agree more. Now, Dr. Pizzorno, let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. Let's talk about environmental toxicity and its net negative effects on health, and, kind of where you're at with that whole subject lately.
Okay, great question. So if you ask a doctor, why do we have this diabetes epidemic, and they'll typically say, well, people are obese, they don't get enough exercise, and they may say they eat too much sugar. And if you look at a nutritionally oriented doctor like yourself who knows more, we say, well, lack of fiber in the diet, deficiency in chromium, deficiency in magnesium, all these can lead to diabetes. And I would say to you, yes, those are all important, and today they are not the primary cause. If you look at people in the top 20% of chemical exposure to something called persistent organic pollutants, so look at the top 20% exposure compared to those in the bottom 20% of exposure, the risk of diabetes is 20-fold higher, 20 times higher. Bigger risk factor than anything else that we're dealing with today. So what's happened is the way we're growing our foods with these pesticides and herbicides and all these various contaminants being added to them, these contaminants, they are basically poisoning insulin receptor sites. And not only do they poison insulin receptor sites, they also damage the pancreas, so the pancreas can't secrete enough insulin. So right now today, the primary cause, the diabetes epidemic, 1/3 of Americans are expected to have diabetes within the next 10 years. The primary cause is chemicals in our foods.
And we don't need to overlook the fact that the use of pesticides in the agricultural methodology, which is rampant all around the world, brought to the table by Monsanto, the presence of the pesticides that are overused now in modern agricultural methods destroys the bacteria in the soil, which is necessary for the uptake of minerals that are in the soil into the body of the plant. This is the only place that human beings get minerals from, unless they're supplementing with them. The only place we're going to get chromium from is if it's in the plant that we eat. And the only place the plant gets it is from the soil that it's grown in, and the plant needs a healthy bacterial presence in the soil in order to be able to metabolize that mineral. So if the bacteria has been eradicated by the pesticide, then there's no chromium in the plant, and then there's pesticide in the human body, and then that interferes with insulin receptors, damages the pancreas, and then everybody is SOL. It is, in fact, a big, bad voodoo daddy of biblical proportions. And, you know, it's interesting to me, don't you think, that educated scientists, educated medical professionals, educated PhDs, when their back is up against the wall and they don't have this holistic outlook, they don't have this understanding, their fallback position is, oh, it's genetic. It's genetic. There must be a gene that causes it. I always have thought that that's kind of, academic laziness on their part. But I couldn't agree with you more that the pollutant issue here is a very, very important piece of the pie. So what do we do therapeutically and to intervene and in order to deal with this specifically? I mean, what do we do?
Well, let me add on to a comment you just made about minerals, because I'm sure you've talked a lot about trace minerals. So not only are we impairing the plant's ability to absorb the minerals, but if you look at the mineral content of food over the last 100 years, we actually have 100 years of data, mineral content of foods, and look at a mineral like copper, for example, critical for our metabolism. Depending upon the food, it's 30 to 73% lower in foods that are available today than the foods we had 100 years ago. So it's not just chemical toxins, but the nutrients we need for enzymes to work, they simply aren't there. So
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, the United States Department of Agriculture released some interesting data years ago that said that over 90% of the soil in the United States is deficient in chromium. Over 90% of the soil is deficient in chromium. So even, if it's not there, it doesn't matter if pesticides are used or not. It's not there. And this is a fundamentally hugely overlooked aspect to the genesis of chronic disease.
So now the way to get the chemicals out of the body are basically twofold. Number one, stop putting them in. So eating organically grown foods rather than conventionally grown foods has a huge effect. For example, there was a study done actually here in Seattle where they looked at children who are eating organically grown foods and compared to children eating conventionally grown foods, and the kids eating conventionally grown foods had 9 times the level of organophosphate pesticides in their body compared to kids eating organically grown foods. So they then put these kids on organically grown foods, and within a week, their blood and urine levels were down to normal. But the problem is, of course, those pesticides were in their fat, in their brain, in their bone. They were just still in their body. It'll take a long time to get rid of them. So number one is decrease of consumption. And then number two is facilitate the body's ability to get rid of these toxins. One of the most important ways that the body does this is by binding these toxins to a chemical in the body called glutathione. And what glutathione does is it binds to these chemical toxins in the liver and secretes them out through the gut. And a good way, the best way I know to increase glutathione in the body is with a nutrient called N-acetylcysteine, or NAC for short. So NAC plus increasing fiber in the body, in the diet, will increase the rate which will get rid of these toxins, and of course then eating organically to decrease the rate which they get into the body. So the bottom line is this will work and toxin levels will go down.
Yeah, and it's a relatively easy way to do it, right? I mean, you don't need intravenous chelation therapy. You don't need to go to a clinic in Sweden. You don't need to have a blood transfusion like the rock and roll stars do. All you need to do is adjust your dietary intake and get on board with science-based, clinically verified medical nutrition. Yeah. And, we needn't, of course, overlook the importance of selenium here in the upregulation of glutathione. So I think that if you add selenium to a good N-acetylcysteine protein donor, then you're going to get more bang for your buck there. But really, it's fascinating stuff. And I think this is probably going to be kind of the next big wave in, the holistic medical kind of armamentarium. It's going to be the next big wave. Of course, Dr. Walter Crinnion has been one of the leaders in this forever. Dr. Crinion's been touting the net negative effects of pollution since I've known him, and that's been over 25 years.
A student in our first graduating class from Bastyr.
Isn't that remarkable?
Another one of my students. It's really quite gratifying.
I mean, it really has to be gratifying, Dr. Pizzorno, when you look back at every single solitary thing that you've done, at where you were, and then you just take a breath and look at the profession where it's at today. I mean, I can't imagine that. It must be extremely rewarding. So 1 minute left in this segment, and then, of course, I'm going to finish up the segment with a 5-minute and 35-second segment. So N-acetylcysteine, what's the best way to get it? What do you recommend?
Well, dietary supplements is the easiest way to get it. I typically recommend to patients 500 milligrams twice a day if they have a high toxic load, and it works quite well. And also, you rarely can give just one single thing to people and expect everything to be fine because there's so many deficiencies. So I say yes, and in addition, make sure you're taking a good quality multivitamin mineral, and make sure there's some molybdenum in that vitamin mineral, because molybdenum is a trace mineral that helps us metabolize sulfur compounds, which is what's in acetylcysteine. That's what's used to create the glutathione. So you have to make sure you get all the nutrition, but extra N-acetylcysteine because of the persistent organic pollutants.
And you know how to tell, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a molybdenum deficiency? That's if you get bad gas after you eat garlic. How about that? Bet you didn't know that. Stay tuned. We're finishing it up with Dr. Joseph Pizzorno when we come back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Peter Glidden here, your steadfast advocate for health. Did you ever remember when you were a kid and you just had a really awesome Christmas, right? It was just the best Christmas ever, and you kind of didn't want it to end? Well, that's what this interview is like for me. I wouldn't be here without the hard work of Dr. Pizzorno and many, many others. But, it takes a lot of people to, make a village, but there's got to be a mayor of the village or everything goes to pot. Well, Dr. Pizzorno, arguably the mayor of the Village of Naturopathic Medicine, and I am so privileged to have him on my radio show this afternoon. Dr. Pizzorno, out of respect and immense admiration, in the last 5 minutes, I'm just going to open it up to you. Anything, that's like a burning subject that you feel like the listening public should understand or you feel like talking about?
Well, thank you for the kind compliment. Yeah, I've been studying this, obviously, for a long time, as a student, as a clinician, researcher, expert spokesperson. I now have 10 books out, so I've been involved quite a lot. And as I've delved into the complexity of human biochemistry and health, I realized that, well, we do need to understand the biochemical uniqueness of each person, but everybody has to understand the foundation. And the foundation is really quite simple. Bottom line is you have to get into the body what it needs and get out what it does not. Now, I didn't articulate this so clearly myself. I'm quoting a dear friend of mine, Dr. Sid Baker. And that really is what it's all about. Our bodies have remarkable ability to heal themselves if we just give them a chance. And the way we give them a chance is by giving the body the nutrients it needs for our enzymes to work the way they're supposed to, but also get rid of the toxins, because what these toxins do is they poison our enzyme, so our body's wonderful biochemistry can't work properly. So that's the foundation. Get into by what it needs, get out what it doesn't, and then recognize each person has unique needs. So some people, for example, 800 units of vitamin D a day is fine, but other people, like my wife, needs 10,000 units of vitamin D a day because of her genetic susceptibilities. So we need to be sophisticated. The foundation plus the biochemistry, we have to deal with it all.
And certainly this is why naturopathic medicine exists. This is kind of the charter of naturopathic medicine, is to marry the scientific method with the practice of medicine, and it's called the practice of medicine for a reason, because we know more now than we knew 5 years ago, than we knew 10 years ago, than we knew 20 years ago, and hopefully we will be able not only to move this baby forward medically and scientifically, but also politically. Do you think that it's a possibility realistically, and I know the optimist in you would want to say yes, but do you think it's a realistic possibility, Dr. Pizzorno, that all 50 states will be licensed to practice naturopathic medicine in our lifetime?
Absolutely. No question about it. So a couple things. One of the challenges we've had as a profession is conventional medicine will say, well, there's no research to support your position. Well, one of my books, called The Textbook of Natural Medicine, has 10,000 citations to peer-reviewed scientific literature documenting the efficacy of what we do. And as our companies, as our government agencies struggle with the healthcare challenge, they start looking at naturopathic doctors as being part of the solution. I want to say a little experiment. So periodically, there is published a listing of the healthiest and least healthy states in the country. So they rank the states 1 to 50 according to how healthy they are. When I saw that ranking, I was struck by noticing that in the top 10 healthiest states, 8 licensed naturopathic doctors. And the 10 bottom least healthy states, none licensed naturopathic doctors. So what I'm seeing is at the state level, they're starting to recognize that we are part of the solution. And as the state starts committing to improving the health of their members, you might say of their citizens, they start looking to us for help.
Well, yeah, from God's lips to from God's mouth to your ears. How does that go? From God's mind to your lips, whatever. I couldn't agree more. I'm given pause here to really thank you so very much for everything that you've done. I don't know if I've ever said this to you to your face personally. I'm going to say this to you virtually now. Thank you very, very, very much for everything that you've done. It would be a very different world had you not been in it. And as far as I'm concerned, the world owes you a huge debt. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Joe Pizzorno, we'll have to have you back in the future, Doc. I so forward appreciate everything that you do. I'll see you around campus.
Thank you.
More to come, ladies and gentlemen, in the second hour, taking your calls. Stick around. Let's go to the phones right now and go to California and talk to Josh. Hey, Josh, thanks for the call. You are live.
Hello?
Josh.
Hey, what's up, Dr. G, man? Finally good to talk to you, brother.
Hey, what's up, Josh, man?
All right, man. Yeah, I just been, I just got a couple questions, about phosphorus, calcium, and potassium. I mean, I myself is not on dialysis, but I just heard you talk about it with some other fellow the other day that when taking blood test levels and potassium levels are high, phosphorus levels are high, calcium levels are high, it's actually the opposite. You don't have enough calcium, you don't have enough phosphorus, and you don't have enough potassium. Does that hold true?
Yeah, that's correct. The blood values are inversely related to what's happening nutritionally in the body. Now, there are some exceptions which prove that rule, but especially in dialysis, and this is because the MDs, bless their hearts, again, are like colorblind artists, right? Now, if you hired a colorblind artist to paint a picture of you, well, some of it would be right, but a lot of it would be wrong because they're colorblind, and all the colors would be wrong. It would look like you, but all the colors would be wrong, and it would be less than perfect. Well, because of their grounding in the reductionistic methodology and because their complete lack of understanding of medical nutrition and even the physiology of how those minerals are metabolized in the body, they get it wrong. So, they see that these levels are elevated, but they misinterpret what that means. And that's a problem. But because they're all in the same boat, and because all of their colleagues have misinterpreted the same results, and because they were taught in school that this is the correct way to do it, then it becomes reality by consensus, and it just becomes one gigantic incorrectness, that just kind of persists over time because they're the only people in charge. I mean, they own the show. They're the monopoly, and so nobody's calling them on what's going on. So especially with dialysis, right, what dialysis does, you have to remember, it's kind of a broad brush. It's like napalm, a dialysis removes bad stuff from the blood, but it also removes good stuff from the blood, like potassium and phosphorus and iron and sulfur and zinc and selenium and a lot of stuff. And so the dialysis process will strip this stuff from your body so that you're extremely deficient in this. And then what the body does is it freaks out and rallies and takes the stuff out of stores, but because the dialysis process was so intense, it takes too much, and so your blood levels become elevated, which is a direct indication that you don't have enough. And so when you give a dialysis patient the 90 essential nutrients, which contain phosphorus and potassium and everything else that the body needs, you see those levels drop in the blood, actually. And then if you're lucky enough, and if we have intervened in time, if there's not too much damage present, if the body has not, gone beyond its ability to recover, then we can have the person recover from not need dialysis anymore. And that beats a poke in the eye with a sharp stick.
So that holds true. I mean, they have special diets for kidney patients and all that. And I know the fact that if, you don't go to a doctor for a nutritionist, to see what we eat. But, they tell me that a tomato is bad. So for me, I mean, I have a 50 bad food list, So I mean, should I follow what they say, or should I go with longevity?
No, go with longevity, because here's the deal, right? I mean, you just have to look to see results. I mean, this is what we do in every other aspect of society, right? I mean, you're not going to buy an automobile from a car manufacturer who makes crappy cars. I mean, they're going to go out of business. Nobody's going to do that. You're not going to buy a cellular device made by a company that produces crappy cellular devices, because who's going to do that? Well, nobody's going to do that in a free market. So you just have to look to see what type of results the MDs are delivering to patients on dialysis. Well, the results are bad, because the dialysis every couple of months, every couple of years needs to be increased. The rounds of dialysis need to be increased, and then the kidney gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and then they're on a kidney transplant list. And, that's what happens to everybody on dialysis. But while people are under the care of the MD and they're on dialysis, their kidney health is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, you can argue correctly so that without the dialysis, you'd be dead, but the procedure that they put you on from soup to nuts doesn't help the kidney to recover its health, because your kidney gets worse over time. Everybody's does on dialysis. And
right.
What happens a large percentage of the time in patients seen by naturopathic physicians and with, good new-fashioned medical nutrition, the kidney function gets better and better and better and better. And so, which is better, getting better and better or getting worse and worse? Well, getting better and better is. And so I would lean on longevity 100% for 90 days, and then be your own judge, right? Because you're going to see noticeable and measurable improvement somewhere when you're on board longevity for 90 days. And, that's the only reason that we are still in business, is because we get results.
Right. Okay. Well, right on. And another thing about phytates, I know you talk a lot about phytates and how it absorbs minerals. But I'm just saying the influence of phytates. I mean, I know one bean is not going to take all your minerals.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be some, give and go, let go here. There's give and take here.
Yeah, there is, and that's a good point. But regretfully, and look, man, if this was a perfect world, and there was just as much research money given to my profession as was given to the MDs and the pharmaceutical industry, we would have answered your question 30 years ago. and I could tell you exactly how many phytates you'd be able to eat. And I'd be able to tell you, well, you can eat 1.5 ounces of pinto beans, but you can only eat 3/4 of an ounce of black beans or whatever, right? I mean, we would have dialed this in, but nobody knows, man. I mean, nobody knows. So because nobody knows, our broad brush recommendation is, if you are attempting to upregulate minerals into the body, then it would be prudent that when you take a mineral supplement into your body for a couple hours before and a couple hours after, you just avoid phytates completely. Then you're completely right. You may be perfectly fine with, a small serving of beans, but you'd be perfectly bad with a medium-sized serving of beans. Nobody knows, man. I wish I had a better answer for you.
Yeah, wow, yeah, that's right, man. Because most of the gluten-free products, man, they all got that phytate in there, and it makes it really tough,
I know it does. It makes it really tough. I mean, especially for patients that, are beneath the wheel of diseases which are, heavily related to minerals. Because what the phytate does is it'll bind to the mineral and then you poop it out so that the mineral that you've just swallowed, right, doesn't get into the bloodstream because it's bound to the phytate, and it would kind of got locked into jail, and then you pooped it out and it didn't get into the bloodstream. Now, that doesn't happen to all of the minerals that you take, but we don't know the percentage there, and so, we're kind of floating down the stream, and who knows? It's got to be trial and error. So, that's regretfully what it's down to, man. It's trial and error. Yeah. Because the MDs own the show and ain't nobody doing this research, and it should have been done decades ago.
All right. Well, yeah. That's great. I'd like to thank you for your work, Dr. Glidden, and I'm on this path right now, man. I feel like this is a God sent for me. So I mean, I'm just trying to take this horse and ride with it, man.
Well, nothing argues better than results. Trust us because we get results. You got to follow the program. If you have any questions about how to fine-tune the program, just call us up, and I am here to help. Keep up the good work in California, Josh, and I appreciate your trust. And this is, again, ladies and gentlemen, the methodology here, right? One person at a time. And then they tell one person, and then they tell one person, and then they tell one person, and then they tell one person. Worked pretty good for the church, didn't it? I mean, the Catholic-based religions, it started with 2 guys. Look at it now. Word of mouth is often the most effective grassroots campaign, and we've got a strong one moving down the track here. Stay tuned. We have a question from Belgium in the chat room. Evelyn was told that there was a problem with her fallopian tubes and that was why she was not able to get pregnant, that she could only get pregnant with in vitro fertilization, which she's tried a number of times and it's failed. So from our point of view, what is necessary in order to optimize the structure and function of the reproductive tract is the following. Number 1, you must eliminate the 10 bad foods. Number 2, you must eliminate the 10 bad foods. Number 3, eliminate the 10 bad foods. Number 4, get on board with a diet and or nutritional supplement program that delivers to your body 100,000 ORAC points of antioxidants a day, and I do not care how you do that. 100,000 ORAC points of antioxidants a day is what's required. Figure out how to get that done. If you want help about that, you can go and get my free book, freedoctorbook.com. freedoctorbook.com. I have an entire chapter on antioxidants and what they're all about. What's it all about, really, anyway? So I check it out, freedoctorbook.com. The last but not least, we need to give the body the raw materials it needs to optimize its structure and function. Evelyn is on a limited budget. She can only afford approximately $150 US a month. So the recommendation for you, Evelyn, would be 1 bottle of Ultimate Classic. I can't believe I said that out loud. 1 bottle of Ultimate Classic per month. 1 bottle of EFA Plus per month. 1 bottle of Cal Toddy per month, and 1 or 2 bottles of selenium. 1 or 2 bottles of selenium. Actually, 1 bottle of selenium per month and 1 bottle of plant-derived minerals. So that's 1 plant-derived minerals, 1 selenium, 1 Cal Toddy, 1 EFA Plus, and 1 Ultimate Classic. Do those supplements every month. Eliminate the 10 bad foods and eat a diet that's high in antioxidants. Do that for 3 months in a row and then attempt to get pregnant. And, you know, I'm not averse to having you name your child Dr. Glidden. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Let's go to Michigan and see what Terrence is up to. Hey, Terrence, thanks for the call. You are live.
Dr. Glidden, how are you today?
Pretty good, Terrence. God willing, I'll get better. What's up?
Dr. Glidden, I went to bed last night. My hip was bothering me real bad all day at work, and I took me a shower and everything in a nice soaking bath. 2 o'clock this morning, I could not lift my legs out of bed to walk.
Ouch.
I did everything I could, but just cry.
Yeah.
And I started rubbing down my body with oils and Young Living oils I have, and everything, nothing worked. I mean, my wife just tried to help me all she could to pull me up, and it wouldn't work.
Was it both hips?
Just one hip on my right side.
Yeah, okay.
And I got up and I called the doctor. I made an appointment to go in. I said, no, I'm going to call Pastor G.
All right, good. Here we go. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to lie down on the floor on your back. I mean, are you able to do that, or is it the pain so bad that you can't even blink an eyelash?
Oh, no. Since I called Pastor G and he sent me over to Young...
All right. So I want you to lie down on the floor. After I'm done telling you what to do, right? I want you to lie down on the floor. I kind of want you to wiggle your hips around, and then I want you to put your 2 legs, out straight, and I want you to bring your ankle bones together. Bring the ankle bones together, and I'm gonna bet you the ankle bones on the inside, right? And I'm gonna bet you that the ankle on the left foot, it's the left side of your body that hurts.
That's the right side.
The right side, I'm going to bet you that the ankle bone on the right foot is going to be not parallel with the ankle bone on the left foot, and that it's going to be closer to your body, and the left foot is going to be further away from your body when you measure the two. You're going to have somebody else look at this, like your wife. She's going to have to bring your feet together and see whether or not the ankle bones are lined up. And I'm going to bet you that your left foot is going to be longer than your right foot. Have somebody check that out right now, and I'll bring you back up when we return from this commercial break. Check it out. It's how we do it, ladies and gentlemen, one person at a time. I'm Dr. Glidden, your steadfast advocate for holistic health. Let's go back to Terrence and see whether or not I was right. All right, Terrence, is one leg longer than the other?
One leg is longer than the other because I broke my right leg twice, and I wear orthotic under my right shoe, in my right shoe.
And it's the right hip that's hurting?
Yes.
All right. So there is a very common phenomenon, and it's loosely referred to as sacroiliac impingement. It's kind of where your thigh bone and your pelvis and your backbone all join up. There's a joint there, and it's easy for that joint to get locked out of place. I mean, you can cough or sneeze or turn around the wrong way, and that joint gets tweaked out of place. And when that joint is tweaked out of place, I mean, it's like having a sprained ankle, man. It's just, it hurts, and it hurts, and it's going to continue to hurt until somebody pops it back into place. And the only person that can do that is a chiropractor.
Okay.
So
I called Pastor G, and he had me to take the calcium and the magnesium and the Arnicare.
Not a bad idea.
I put on it.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
And it took the pain. The pain is, it's much, God, I can breathe.
Much better, right? Yeah. So you got to continue with that, but I'm going to bet you 25 cents that this is a mechanical thing.
Okay.
And that, that joint needs to be popped back into place. And when it is popped back into place, you're going to feel like $1 million.
Great. Okay. I'll get to my chiropractor.
Yeah, and chiropractors know how to do that. As a matter of fact, this particular technique of popping this joint back into place in chiropractic circles is referred to as the $1 million roll, because the chiropractors have made millions of dollars literally from doing just this one adjustment, because most everybody in the country is going to need this adjustment at least once a year. And people get it to varying degrees. But, in the meantime, I would keep doing everything that you're doing nutritionally, but get to the chiropractor. I think that's going to be your savior in this regard.
Thank you, Dr. Glidden. I really appreciate you, man.
Well, you can thank me after it works, Terrence. I appreciate the trust very, very much. Let's go to Allison in Utah. Hey, Allison, what's happening? Thanks for the call. You are live.
Hi, I'm feeling that this is a privilege to be able to get on your radio program, and I'm new to longevity. I started the process on the 30th of September.
Hey, well, welcome aboard. That's awesome.
Yes.
Really great. Thanks so much. What's your experience been so far?
Well, it's been excellent already, because I'm on sleep apnea. The first 3 days, I already felt a difference. In fact, I was using oxygen with the CPAP. And the third day after, I prayed about this, and I dumped the oxygen. Don't need it.
Good girl.
So, I'm excited about the nutrients and working forward. And here's the thing. I'm on the CPAP, and I was told that I am a central apnea, which I need a BiPAP. And I'm so tired of working with the insurance company and the provider, the vendor. I need you to talk on this subject. I mean, what would my direction be to resolve this? Can this be resolved, and how?
Well, so they told you, what was the distinction with your particular condition? What did they tell you it was?
Well, I had an oximeter, and they said I needed a CPAP machine. I stopped breathing, and there wasn't enough oxygen. So I first started out with oxygen alone, with a concentrator. Then they assigned me to a CPAP machine with oxygen.
Yep.
Okay, and then they did a couple more oximeters with the oxygen and CPAP, and the doctor decided, actually she's a nurse practitioner, decided that I needed to have a BiPAP because I have central apnea, and I wasn't breathing past that certain range that the CPAP was set up for on automatic. So I'm getting tired of all this rubbish, and I thought, I'm sick of doctors. I'm done.
I know. So welcome to our life, right?
Well, I'm delighted about this possibility, and the person that it was a divine intervention. I was in the right place at the right time, and this gentleman was telling me all about longevity. And of course, my ears perked up because this is not a new topic for me.
Well, we don't address this issue enough, and this issue is the one of divine intervention. I'm going to tell you all about sleep apnea in just a second, but this is. Sure. This is a point worthy of spending a minute on.
Sure.
I would gainsay that a majority of people who have been enrolled in longevity would consider their enrollment in longevity divine intervention. I would say that it's the majority of people that are in longevity because of, the health. There are some people that are in longevity because of just the business opportunity, and that's really their thing. They want to be more financially secure. But even for some of those people, they felt like it was a divine intervention because they just went bankrupt or they just went broke or something. Their kid needs a $10,000 surgery to remove a piece of shrapnel from their leg and they can't afford it, and they pray, and then the next day they see longevity. So you're not alone in your experience that there's something going on behind the scenes here to, introduce people into the longevity methodology. That would be an interesting poll to take, really. That would be an interesting poll to take, to see how many people had that experience of being introduced to longevity. I think I'm going to do that when the next opportunity arises. So I appreciate your telling us that, number one. Number two, all right, now, this is where you may start to get angry, okay?
Why?
So are you? Well, just listen to me. Not at me, but angry at the system.
Oh, well, I'm already pretty much there.
Well,
I don't need too much more.
Angrier. Okay, maybe not.
Before you get into number 2, I'm 77. I don't do aspirins and all this crap. Doctors try to prescribe thyroid, and the last one was they took the test and I had too much iodine. She wanted me to take iodine, and then she prescribes the thyroid. I said, no, I'm not taking thyroid on the results of too much iodine because, obviously I would be more hypo. So I've been released. I don't listen to them. I'm done. I
know it's interesting because, oftentimes they'll do the incorrect diagnostic procedure, or they'll make the wrong determination from the diagnosis. They'll get it backwards. I mean, stuff like this happens all of the time.
Sure.
And quite frankly, it's a little scary from my point of view because there's so many MDs in the world who just don't have a clue. But in any event, we are of the opinion, based on our understanding of physiology, that sleep apnea is a physician-created disease, that there is, in fact, no such thing as sleep apnea, and that it's a canard, it's a red herring, it's a fictitious illness created by the disease, either on purpose or through their inept juvenile understanding of the pathophysiology of the human body. Now, as far as I'm concerned, nobody has ever died from sleep apnea. And most of the time, the only people that sleep apnea bothers are the people that are sleeping with the people who have sleep apnea.
Okay.
Now, there are a handful of people who have been diagnosed with sleep apnea who feel much, much, much better in the morning after they've been given the CPAP machine, right? It's
I don't. I'm so tired.
All right. So then that would indicate that you, in fact, are not a candidate for the CPAP machine whatsoever, and that you've just been fed a red herring, because here's the deal. Your breathing is one of the few mechanisms in the body which is both automatic and inside your control. When you're sleeping, you can alter your breaths, right? You can take deep breaths, you can take rapid breaths, you can hyperventilate, you can hold your breath, you can do a lot of things, right?
Exactly.
But when you're sleeping, your breath is outside of your conscious control. You're not consciously controlling the breath. So when you're sleeping, or, you're not thinking about it, the regulation of the breath goes to an automatic procedure in the body, and the automatic procedure of inspiring and expiring, inhaling and exhaling, is regulated by how much carbon dioxide and nitrogen, or carbon dioxide specifically, are building up in the blood. Different people have different levels of metabolism. Different people have different body weights, different people have different heights, different people have different metabolic ranges of activity. Some people are fast metabolizers, some people are slow metabolizers. Some people are 6'4" and 250 pounds with 10% body fat, and some people are 5.1 with 40% body fat and they're 100 pounds overweight. Different people have different bodies, and the different body type and all of these variables will come into play in determining how fast their respiration is when they are unconscious. Which means, how long does it take carbon dioxide to build up in your blood when you are asleep, sufficient to the cause to make you exhale and then inhale? Because that's what regulates the exhalation and the inhalation, is the amount of bad gas that builds up in your blood. Well, if you're a slow metabolizer, it's going to take a long time for bad gas to build up in your blood. So when you're sleeping, you're not going to breathe as much as the next person might, and so forth and so on down the road. Different strokes for different folks. So breathing rates during sleep are regulated by the unconscious, the autonomic nervous system in the body, and it's a completely self-regulating machine. Now, the MDs do not believe that the body has self-regulating, inherent, God-given intelligence. The MDs believe the body is just a biochemical bag of chemicals waiting to break, and that the older that you get, the more likely it is for things to break, and that it's only a matter of time until things break. And honestly, if you did enough diagnostic techniques to everybody, the MD is going to find something with everybody that's just not right. So, they do the pulse oximeter, or they do they look at your gas levels somehow, and then based on their determinations, they say, oh, your oxygen levels are too low, or oh, your oxygen levels are too high. And you could argue that their baselines are incorrect, which I argue all the time. But from their point of view, they're colorblind artists, and they don't know that they're colorblind. And so they're misinterpreting the data all of the time. And people like you are the unwilling victims of their incompetence. In their peculiar, outdated, anachronistic worldview. So, long story short, you don't have sleep apnea. And if your experience is that you don't feel any different when you have the machine as when you don't have the machine, then you don't need the machine, because the MD is full of crap. And that's the long and the short of it. Now, is it always appropriate and prudent and necessary and, quite frankly, mandatory to support and promote healthy circulation and healthy oxygen metabolism in the human body? Yeah, 100%. So you need to be off of the 10 bad foods, and you need to be on the appropriate healthy pack in order to give your body all of the stuff that it needs. And I'll dial that in for you specifically when we come back. Stick around. Let's go back to Allison in Utah and dial it in for her. Allison, are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so what's your current body weight?
183 on my scale, 189 in the doctor's office.
Yeah, they put their thumb on the scale there, probably.
Yeah, and I'm a 5'3", I think, and a half.
All right, so are you familiar with the 10 bad food list?
I can't tell them to you off the top of my head, but my sponsor sent them to me, and I've read them. I can't announce them right now.
Oh, well, that's okay, but you've got the list, is what I mean.
Oh,
so
definitely, I do.
All right, you need to become, the queen of the 10 of eliminating the 10 bad foods in Utah.
Well, I don't do fast foods. I don't do fries. I don't do chips. I don't do any of that stuff.
Okay, but
I don't
you
even
also
have a microwave.
Well, all right, but you also need to eliminate whole grains and breads and pastas.
I already was on gluten-free. I discerned that before I got on longevity, so I'm doing gluten-free bread.
Okay, so just make sure you've dialed in all 10 bad food freedom.
I will.
And life is good, number one. Number two, in a perfect world, per month, you would be doing 2 Healthy Body Start Pack 2.0 liquid. Ponderously long name, Healthy Body Start Pack 2.0 liquid.
Yeah, that's what I started out with.
We need 2 of those a month.
30th.
You need 2 of those a month.
Two in a month, okay.
If budget allows, otherwise do 1.
Yeah.
And either 4 bottles of Ultimate Selenium per month.
Okay, of selenium. I only did 1.
Or 2. 2 is the minimum.
Okay, selenium 2 minimum. Got it.
4 maximum.
4 max. Got it.
Plant-derived minerals.
Plant-derived minerals. Okay.
1 minimum, 2 maximum.
1 minimum, 2 max. Got it.
Yep. And last but not least, 1 bottle of Ultimate Daily capsules per month.
Bottle daily. What are you calling?
Yeah, it's called Ultimate Daily Caps.
Ultimate Daily
Capsules. Yeah. Now I'm going to give you a heads up about those, because those arguably are the hardest supplement that Youngevity has to swallow. I personally have choked on that supplement 3 times. It's because
thanks for sharing.
I was rushing and I just wasn't paying attention. So you have to either take those capsules one at a time and be mindful of when you take them, so that you swallow them, appropriately, and you wash them down.
Are they bigger than the EFAs?
Yeah, but they're not soft and squishy like the EFAs. They kind of stick to your tongue.
Oh, cute. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a workaround for that. You want to put those in the freezer. Put the capsules in the freezer, and that hardens them up, and it makes it easier to swallow them.
Okay.
Or, which is a better idea, you can go get one of those mortar and pestles, you know?
Oh, yeah, I know. Mm-hmm.
Grind up the Ultimate Dailies. You know, you're going to need to do 6 a day, 2, 2, and 2. So you can grind up 2 at a time and mix them in with food, mix them in with applesauce, mix them in with yogurt or whatever, and that's probably a better way to take them.
Okay.
That's a little work intensive. Or you can put them in like one of those little coffee grinders, you know, and just grind them up into a powder, right?
Okay. So what I added, my new order should come tomorrow. Ultima Floral FX Slender FX Sweeties, Ultimate Enzymes, Ultimate Glucogel 240. Those were what I was supposed to take the first time, but I didn't have the cash to do that.
Well, do you have a bone and joint issue?
Yes, my knees. Yes, my knees. I've done a lot of foot races and triathlons.
All right, so to the protocol that I just recommended.
Yes.
I want you to add 2 bottles of Glucogel at the 240 count. 2 bottles of Glucogel at the 240 count in a month. Now, the stuff that you just got, take it and finish it. But next month, I want you to order what I just told you to order. And don't worry about the CPAP because it is just, you don't need it. And honestly, the people that convince you that do need it, you know, should be sent to jail, in my opinion. We're out of time, Allison. I appreciate your trust. Ladies and gentlemen, mark today's show in your archives and look at the first hour's interview with Joe Pizzorno over and over again. So very happy he was able to be with us. I am your steadfast advocate for health. I'll see you all around campus. Live long and prosper.